Welcome to Peace Freaks, a parenting and family podcast for the freaks, geeks, nerds, and weirdos, the outcasts who went on and had their own. We're used to being the exception to the rule, so come along with us as we try to also live exceptionally. We're here to help make you the best version of your freaky family. Welcome, everyone, to another episode here of Peace Freaks. I'm Nikki P here, as always, with my lovely wife, Lizzie.
Hello, hello.
How you doing there, babe?
Not too shabby.
We're joined today by a good personal friend of mine, someone that I know IRL, Mr. Brian Pritchard. I met Brian a number of years ago at a gig, and he was one of the few people I've ever had the pleasure of talking to who was willing to think of their musical performance as an avenue to do something, do anything. You know, it's creative, but hey, we're doing this thing. Why don't we think bigger? Why don't we try and do something with it? And so for years, me and Brian have been trying to do something with it as musicians with our group, Puma Thurman. But over the course of time that I've known Brian, he has amazed me at the fact that I've never met anyone that lives life like Brian does. And that's because I've never really known an actual entrepreneur or someone who's willing to chase down the vision and just kind of live outside the box. And he messaged me maybe a month or two ago. And he's like, so there's this app and I'm not getting paid to do anything right now, but I told him I wanted to work on it and we'll talk about the money later. Which to me is just like, that's fucking bonkers. I'm not doing shit if you're not paying me. But he messaged me and even more recently than that said, well, it looks like we have some type of actual arrangement going on now. So Brian, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became this weird person that does work for free and ends up with a job?
Wow. Thank you, Nick. That was a very kind introduction. Those are lovely things to hear about myself. So thank you. And I appreciate you having me on to talk about my favorite topic, which is me. No, but in all sincerity, thank you for having me on, and thank you for the question. So, no, it's funny, even in your intro when you were talking about the initial connection we made about music and doing something with it, right? That I when I met you, spent a couple years working for a local entrepreneur, sort of serial entrepreneur. This guy, Greg Clement. He runs a real estate investing software company and also a 100-acre apple orchard that he, uses as a agritourism destination, right? As a concept. Recently bought a golf course and did the same thing there. Has like an online child's blanket company, right? And
I need to meet your friend.
Working for this guy was an absolute game changer for me. In that, up until that point, work to me, it had never occurred to me to be an entrepreneur. Never occurred to me to be a business owner. I love playing music. I wasn't seeing a clear way to have it pay my bills, but I knew I wanted to. So every job I had was like the thing I did for money while I was trying to figure out how to take my passion and make money doing that, right? And what was interesting is on my first day at that job, when I started learning about internet marketing, there were so many concepts about marketing that I realized I'd been doing for, most of my life up until that point as a musician, right? That the things that are true, no matter what you're selling, right? Whether it is a band that technically is a product, right? Or, or, a widget, right? You've got an audience that you're trying to reach. You've got a message you're trying to put in front of them. Where do you find that audience? What is the message going to be? How do you measure whether or not that message is giving you the outcomes that you want? If you have the attention of that audience for even a moment, how do you capture their information in a way that lets you keep communicating with them, right? And I see all this stuff, and I'm thinking, I spent my time in high school slapping flyers on the wall when we had a show, right? Taping them up to the walls of my school, to the walls of local record stores. I'd be the one sitting there at a table when we did have a gig with a little pen and paper and notebooks that anybody who talked to me, it was like, let me take down your email address so I can tell you when we have a show coming up, right? And so suddenly my professional world for the first time, and this was like, I don't know, like almost 12 years ago, right? That I started working for this company and made this connection between, okay, marketing and business and how it intersected with a lot of those personal goals, right? And anyway, like, you know, the I'm trying to get us up to the present day a little bit more, but I left that company a few years later, did so on great terms. But my role was changing there in a way that was going to take me away from in-person networking that I'd been doing, right? Growing a huge network of other business owners and people I knew. And the employee mindset a lot of times is, you know, there's a tried and true mentality that, like, if I work really hard and demonstrate my value and demonstrate my loyalty, like I'll be safe here, you know. And it was interesting to suddenly know all these business owners and feel like, you know, this network to me is maybe more valuable than any one job ever could be. And just feeling like I had this unique window of opportunity to. That's what transitioned me into being an entrepreneur. Is I didn't have money in the bank. I didn't have a business plan. I had enough to pay my bills for about 30 days. But I also looked and said, you know, the more time I'm away from interacting with all of these business owners, the harder it'll be for me to try this idea later. And my role was going to take me back to a desk job where I was going to continue being an employee to a company that I loved, but just working for that one company, right? And so anyway, at that time, I saw this path. Once the path formed in my mind, it was like, if I don't run after it right now, frankly, I didn't have the confidence that I would be able to strategically build towards it later, right? It's like we end up talking ourselves out of doing scary shit, and as a result, never venture out.
Well, and you know, this is at the perfect time in your life because you're a bachelor, you don't got kids, and you know,
that's not true.
There's no responsibilities.
Yeah, I guess I did leave that part out, right? So I had enough to pay my bills for 30 days, and those bills included responsibilities for a wife and 2 children. But you know, honestly, again, if I'd had a wife and partner who didn't trust me, and I've managed to earn and keep that trust, right? You know, again, bringing us up to the present day, so that in this new venture, even that I'm trying, it's like it wasn't even so much of a conversation. It was like, no, man, you've got enough of a track record. But that is a critically important ingredient as well. Is if you don't have, especially the person you live with, right, your wife, your partner, whoever that is, it sure does help to have them on your side. So that made a big difference to have her trust. And yeah, anyway, it worked. I've been self-employed for 8 years, and I still am today. Even the new project that I'm working on, I'm not an employee still. I'm still just Brian, finding people to work with. You know,
it fascinates me. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what exactly you do for the company? You can also tell us about the company. Obviously, it feels like a necessary part at this point to tell us about the company. But moreover, just what inspired you to want to get involved with this company and enough to take the leap that you did.
Thanks, Nick, for reorienting me on point there. So you know, the connection really that I was looking to draw between even the through line that you made me think of in that introduction of, I got excited about how business and passion could intersect, right? And what happened this year was sort of unexpected. In my personal life, I've been a lifelong, huge movie lover and pop culture lover in general, but great movies. And then as television became, arguably a superior.
Well, great movies is suspect for the record.
What's up?
I said great movies is suspect. He likes great movies. He also likes really terrible movies.
That's true.
Perhaps the same thing in their different ways.
Well, what I was saying is, TV shows have become as solid of a storytelling medium as, films were. And I never felt that way growing up, but they did over time. So I've sort of expanded that sense of going, I'm not just a movie lover, but anyway, I like going out and finding where stuff has been filmed. The first time I went to New York was really what turned me on to that idea that so many things have been shot in Manhattan. And somehow, even as a lifelong movie lover and always going on family vacations and stuff, it wasn't until that trip that I had the light bulb go off of like, I'd really like to see some of these spots that were iconic to me. And some of them are iconic to almost everybody, like the Ghostbusters headquarters, right? It's something you can see there. And some were a little more personal. The movie The Fisher King, have either or both of you seen?
I've seen it. It was intense.
Robin Williams, right?
So in The Fisher King, Robin Williams is under a sort of delusion that he's in a medieval sort of world while living in New York. So he's dealing with knights and horses. And part of the story then has this building in the middle of the city that looks like a castle, right? That they climb. I mean, it's really central to the story and it is used at several points in the film. Mm-hmm. And that was the spot that I really wanted to see, was like, where is this castle in the middle of all these skyscrapers? And it is a real place. It's on the Hunter University campus. I believe it's Hunter High School. Huh. And finding that was, I don't know. I mean, the Ghostbusters one was too. I've loved that movie since I was a kid. I know it's a super popular one, but it also is deeply personal. But like those couple of interactions really got me going on this personal love, where it got to the point where that was a trip where New York was the destination and the filming locations were an activity. Yeah. But before long, we were building our trips around wanting to see specific filming locations.
Interesting.
And have either of you seen Moonrise Kingdom, the Wes Anderson film with the Boy Scouts and stuff?
I have not seen that one.
That is one that both of my kids took a real liking to, and I loved as well, and my wife loved. And so I figured that those would be easier sells, right? That for the years that we're traveling as a family unit, maybe I'll skip the Fisher King indulgence, you know what I mean, in favor of something everybody recognizes. So we did a trip a few years back to Newport, Rhode Island, and I got to then share that joy with the family and see that same excitement for them of seeing things that they loved come to life before their eyes. And about a year ago, my old boss, that guy Greg that I worked for, that was this huge inspiration and a huge part of my personal and professional life, I find out that his latest venture is an app called Outrise.
Okay.
And it's described as this tool where people create and share experiences, real world experiences. Huh. So he's describing and giving examples when I'm first hearing about it, talking about stuff he's into. He's a motorcycle rider. So he's like, this is going to be a motorcycle rider's best friend of, the best roads to travel and places to stop along the way. And it's going to be great for outdoorsy people, going on hikes and trails and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
My mind, of course, went immediately to, wow, if I understand this correctly, this is going to be a way, after I've spent hours compiling research and planning a trip like that Moonrise Kingdom one.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, I loved that experience, but it also, it always seemed like sort of a waste. Mm-hmm. On the other side, that like I'm happy to give it to anyone who cares. Like every time I've ever posted on my page, during those trips, it's like, if anybody ever wants this, I'll give it to you, And I didn't have necessarily my circle of friends and family reach out, but I have discovered that it's quite the community that existed long before even I got turned on to it. There are people that have been doing this for decades, pre-internet, What were you saying, Liz?
Oh no, I was just responding. That's really cool.
Gotcha. So I was looking for opportunities to start testing this app that I found out my old boss and friend Greg was building. I started off being a beta user for it, and that's something they for sure need, right? And always would have, whether it was me or somebody else. They need people going in and testing this tool before they even launched it. And so I was happy to be a power user for them, frankly, for selfish reasons, right? Even to the extent that there's some altruism in wanting to share this with others. I'm sitting there looking and going, boy, if I share all the stuff I do, maybe I could inspire these other accounts that I follow to do the same. And then suddenly we're all benefiting from each other's expertise in a way that would be really incredible. And you take that idea and you extrapolate it out to every sort of hobby and area of interest. And you go, waterfall chasers, best places to look at stars, obvious stuff like restaurant guides. But what about specifically restaurants with rooftop views in cities? Like, you know what I mean? That there's stuff that there are people that know that stuff inside and out. I like research. I don't mind doing that sort of planning. But you tell me that I can open up an app when I'm visiting New York or Rhode Island, just doing what I was going to do anyway. And all of a sudden, I can open it up and it's filled with local experts sitting there saying, this is my favorite stuff that I'm into around here. You know what I mean? Like that. I thought it was a really cool idea. And as Nick mentioned, I told him in my enthusiasm how it was like, I was honestly, I had shared with him that I was worried that I had to thread a needle in a certain way, right? In that I have no revenue coming in other than that which I generate for myself because I'm self-employed.
Right.
And so suddenly I found that this project was taking up so much of my time and attention, not because they were putting some sort of demands or pressure on me, but because I was so naturally drawn to it. But there's also this recognition that, well, this is like real value that I'm adding. This is a company that you're trying to grow. And so it's like, yeah, let's try to figure that out. So those things are still honestly works in progress, but I was pleased to be able to, in a relatively short time, sort of secure enough of a seat at the table just by running after it.
It was less than a month. I'm pretty positive from when I had that first call to the second call.
Yeah, it was quick.
What's funny to me is that there's a company out there, Crash.co. And Crash, basically, the entire premise of Crash is what you did as a natural course in this. The whole idea behind Crash is that you find a company that you like, and then you exhibit value. And, you know, however that might be, maybe you'll make something, say, hey, I created this, whatever it is, this video or this introduction for your webpage, you know, something like that for you. Hopefully, if you're interested, these are some of my skills, if you have anything. And it's just like, as a natural course, you did exactly what they're, hey, using this thing, and, you know, you exhibited your value, and then you found a place for you, apparently. You know, or whatever it is, they whatever the value is you offer, they found that there's some type of value in it. And it was just, I got that second comment, wow, that is just exactly what they tell you to do stop filling out forms and just go and be valuable to something, and it'll all kind of work out the way it needs to, as long as you're being thoughtful about what you're doing. So it was just a merging of worlds in an interesting way for me.
So I agree completely, but I would be dishonest to say that it was anything less than nerve-wracking at times, right? That the challenge within there, and whether it's books I read, podcasts, conversations, coaching that I pursue and stuff like that, I pay 2 different coaches, for these different groups that I'm in and stuff like that, all of which those investments are really even what I was saying earlier about just going, I don't want to just rely on my own mind and the trappings therein. You know what I mean? It's like, I know the stuff that screws me up.
I gave a guy money last night to help me with a project of mine, and said, how much is an hour of your time worth? I want to hash out some stuff that I apparently suck at, and I know that you do professionally. So could we talk about what I need to do better and how I can kind of move things forward? I feel it was a very productive call, and I have no trouble sending somebody my money if I think it's going to help me acquire the skills I need or the knowledge I need to do something at the next level, to try and take something I'm doing and make it better.
And I would also say again that Greg's a special manager and CEO, right? And I've read books like Think and Grow Rich and stuff like that, where they talk about how the best leaders surround themselves with the right people and empower them to go be good at what they are good at, right? And so it helped, obviously, that I'd worked for him previously.
Yeah,
I bet it helped tremendously, in terms of his ability to trust me in that way. But it also it's a good feeling, and I've worked for a lot of people, and that to me is really it's rare for somebody to, I don't know, just kind of cut you loose like that. It's not that it's unstructured. It's not that he's not involved, but I appreciate very much empowered to, it's like, I asked you to do this because I trust you to be good at it, right? So if I was better at it than you, I wouldn't need you. You know what I mean? Like,
well, and ultimately, the idea of being a business owner, from all of them that I've ever talked to, and I do work for a very small company that I talk to the owners regularly, you want people that you don't have to micromanage. That should be the ultimate goal. Like, let's get the people in here so this thing does what it needs to do, so I can collect the paycheck and be here more for vision than actual day-to-day operations. And knowing that you can trust somebody and that they have the skill set necessary. I mean, you don't have that skill set, so you're probably just going to get in the way anyways. Let them go and do what they do. At least that's how it seems to me. That's what you'd want. That would be like the ideal situation. If I can give you the money to be the expert.
Yeah, and so to be empowered again in terms of saying, I don't know, that I'm off and running, and that is incredibly exciting to me. I had that goal in mind. We were able to, get to a point where it's like, yes, I am able now to give myself permission to be all in and immerse myself in this project. And so, one of the coaches there's a teacher named Bob Proctor and a local coach named Pat Schultz who teaches the Bob Proctor methodology, thinking into results. Part of it involves coming up with a life script.
Well, who directs it? Who directs it for you?
Who directs what?
Who directs the script for you?
I do.
Okay.
I write.
I'm talking to a movie buff, and you couldn't have some quippy, great comeback. Oh, David Lynch, I assume, but
yes, gotcha. Sorry, I did not connect the dots.
Well, no, it's just I'm apparently not early enough to make the joke right. That's all. It's too early in the morning for me.
No, but the idea is to put stuff in present tense and describe it as if it's already happening, right? Okay. So I listen to it all the time, and I can't necessarily recite it word for word, but I'll tell you some ingredients that I have in there. Is I say right off the bat, I am so happy and grateful now that I have secured, a full-time position as the lead creative project manager for Outrise. I love spending all this time interacting with members of this community, and other people that are just passionate about these subject matter areas. I love interacting with them and coaching and guiding them to be better at creating projects. I love the opportunities to get in front of, tourism groups and make presentations about this topic. I can't believe that, getting to plan and execute movie location hunts is somehow, part of my revenue stream all of a sudden. And I get to interact with, people I've admired my whole life, and like all of these ingredients, that life script I created once the picture formed in my mind. I listen to it still today because I haven't completed every single detail in it, but it's amazing in terms of that whole law of attraction sort of thing to find myself today listening to it and like checking off the boxes, right? Of going, okay, this is now true. This is now something that I'm not listening to in an aspirational way, but I'm listening to, like I said, just to stay focused. And if anything, go, well, at the point that this is all feeling boring, for lack of a better word, it doesn't eliminate the gratitude. But at the moment that it's not, that none of it is aspirational, it's time to write a new script, and go, now what, right? What is the thing beyond where I'm at?
The sequel.
Yeah, to reach for the sequel. Yes.
I missed it, but has anyone made a quip about the fact that you're doing something that's technically within the travel industry during a time where that seems like the most insane thing to bet on? Most people are locked in their houses right now, and you're out like gallivanting the world and creating something to help others gallivant the world.
Yeah, no. I of course, that comes up, but I rarely get, negative sort of reactions to it. And here's the simple fact, man. That number one, the nice part is that even the little bit of movie location sightseeing that I've been able to do, honestly, a fairly COVID-friendly activity.
Okay.
So is the self-guided Christmas light tours and stuff like that. So, to the extent that we're creating options, the other thing that's interesting is that in this unusual year or any other, there's some hard data. You don't even need the data to nod your head and go, oh, this makes sense. What I'm saying is people get a lot of pleasure out of planning a vacation.
That's true. That is true.
Okay.
Just the planning.
Is that going to say they don't get as much pleasure out of taking a vacation?
No, but if you're stuck at home anyway, creating a tool that is a fun way to start thinking about your bucket list and making not only a list, it's like you can write a list on a piece of paper, or even if you're using technology, there's some ways to do it now. But I would argue that what we've created is unique. It's the world's first social experience platform is the goal, right? So the best from a detail standpoint equivalent that I've historically seen is just Google Maps, right? That people will share a Google map with 100 dots on it, and there's some sort of glossary over here that's like a master list. But to me, shockingly, for as much of a giant as Google is, I don't find it user friendly. It's not remotely visually appealing. There's just a lot of stuff that's lacking there. This was designed by one of this guy, Sean Modi, who was the first user experience developer for Airbnb. So he's hiring serious professional people to build a tool that looks beautiful and is easy to use and is fun to use. We've been adding so many new features so quickly. It's come so far from like where it was in the beta phase and what you could do to even in the last week. They added some really cool custom photo features, the ability to enter in an address as opposed to just finding business locations. So some great stuff. And I actually, for the first time, instead of recreating something I'd already done, like the Moonrise Kingdom trip or the New York trip, I did use it as a planning tool, and I really liked it. And like that, I was sitting there texting the CEO, being like, man, I just in my free time still was, using Outrise like for pleasure, because it was helpful. I found myself organizing these addresses for this. I want to do Stranger Things locations in Atlanta.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And it's such a massive, massive list and stuff. And I've got all this stuff organized. And I'm starting to get stressed, in a good way, some anxiety around, oh my God, among these 3 seasons, there's like 50 locations. How am I going to get my arms around how to organize the route for this in any sort of meaningful way? And just how daunting of a task it is to go one at a time into Apple or Google and pull up a location and compare it to another location and go like, okay, so I get where this is in relation to this. And I mean, it's daunting. And the light bulb went up where I was like, oh my God, I've been working on this project for months. Like, this is the obvious thing, that this is the solution that I need right now for like legitimately to help me with this. And so I'm going in there and I'm entering all the stops, and you can add notes on each stops. I don't have custom photos yet for this one because I haven't been there.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll add them as I go, which is cool. But the ability to even look at it and plan the route in a super user-friendly way. I dropped all the spots in, and then I'm looking at the map, and it's like, okay, it doesn't make sense. Stop 1 and stop 19 are right next to each other. So let me slide 19 up and make it number 2, and so on until now I have a nice orderly progression and a way to approach the day that just made my life easier. And if that's all it ever did, I'm still really happy with it. But the reality is Stranger Things is an incredibly popular show.
True.
And even if you've never thought to do this, a lot of people go to Atlanta. So if this app is in like millions of hands, as we hope, and anybody opens it up in Atlanta, I could be the one turning them on to like this whole concept even, right? Of being like, you're kidding me. I can go see the school from Stranger Things. I can go see Hawkins Lab right now is like 20 minutes away from, whatever they were in town for anyway. And so anyway, I think it's really cool. And like I said, there's that double motivation of, wanting stuff in there that I want to be the person going to Atlanta and opening it up and finding something unexpected that I hadn't thought of, right? And right now, when I go to Atlanta, we've got some stuff in there that we as a company, when we launched, we picked some categories like waterfalls, date night ideas.
Mm-hmm.
I got one right now for you. All right, Chuck Klosterman's "Killing Yourself to Live." It's the story of him traveling. He did it as a collection of essays, but traveling from all destinations in the U.S. of great rock and roll death. So, like where the Big Bopper's plane goes down, where a great white killed a bunch of people, and and he did it as a road trip for Spin magazine back in the day, I think, and he wrote a book about it called "Killing Yourself to Live." And I'm just imagining taking the road trip that he took to do that as kind of one of these little visions whatever you have.
So I absolutely love that idea. Where my mind goes is, so I guess I need to make a note to
get Chuck to narrate.
Chuck Klosterman.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we can help somebody like that. And our team can say, hey, Chuck, I get it. You don't necessarily want to, even as user friendly as we've made it. I don't assume that guy wants to personally take a couple hours and you know what I mean? Like recreate his experience. but we would do that for him if he would promote it. That's the thing to do, is to find, there's an author named Chris Epting, Epting, and he has like about 15 books. The first one was called James Dean Died Here.
Okay.
And just like what you described, I mean, that's not the only thing. There's like 750 unique pop culture landmarks in there.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the main, feature or article or whatever in it is their chapter follows the route that James Dean took the night he died up to the exact spot that the vehicle crashed and everything, and true crime and all sorts of stuff. Obviously, I mean, there are so many passionate hobbyists, and it doesn't have to be my deep dive passion obsession for me to still be like really interested in checking something like that out as something I would do for fun.
Is there a high fidelity or place or one yet?
I think what he's saying is you could go in and into the app and build it. I mean, I'm just thinking about like all the hole in the wall thrift shops that only the locals know about. I'm thinking about like all the fashion history locations I could find. Like the mind boggles.
She's thinking about that trip to Europe to do all of the Dickensian locations that she has ever wanted to see.
I mean, it's some very, very nice possibilities present themselves.
And a year ago, was this something you dreamed was going to be your job, I guess?
Not in the least, Nick. Right before we started recording, I shared with you again that, like, right about 2 weeks before things got weird this year, I went on a road trip with my sister to Arkansas, to Fayetteville, Arkansas, to pay to meet cast members from Twin Peaks, as you do at like a Comic-Con. And so I went out there. I got a signed photo and stuff from Sherilyn Fenn, who plays Audrey Horne on Twin Peaks, right? A show I've been watching, since I was 12 years old. I'd seen her in Of Mice and Men when I was probably like 10 years old. That was one of my favorite movies.
It's a strange movie for a kid to be interested in, just to be clear.
Fair enough. But anyway, I'm sitting here today, as I mentioned to you, going back and forth on Instagram with Sherilyn Fenn, confirming a meeting that we have tomorrow to talk about a contest idea for Outrise, right? That's another thing we're looking for, is not just people building experiences, but somebody who, has a number of followers, and we can come up with kind of a fun way to collaborate with them. That's a win-win for everybody too, so not only was this not an idea that somehow I'd be able to tie my career in with my passion project, that is mind-blowing and amazing to me that I pulled it off. I feel incredibly happy and grateful. It feels miraculous, even though there was work involved, there was strategy, there was intention. But I'm not a man of faith, fundamentally, right? That's the thing I'm always very envious of about friends in the world of organized religion, is the ease in which they can wrap their head around certain concepts, that the world has your back, right? That there's a higher power that has your back. I'm not a cynical person, but nor am I on the Pollyanna side, you know what I mean? To such an extreme that it's like, even in the world of music, I could never really get into like hippie jam bands, because I listen to it, and it's not about the lyrics, it's about the feeling of the music. And I'm just going, life doesn't sound like that to me.
Okay.
But I do write music that I think is pretty and upbeat, but like life doesn't sound like that to me, where it's 2 hours of just like, man, we are frolicking and dancing in the sun and just soaking it all in and living. Like, I'm not trying to mock it either. I'm just saying, like,
no, it's not your life experience. Not your lived experience, quote unquote.
Yeah,
I've been over and over that with my Irma's, godfather. That it's like they don't all sound the same, but they all sound the same. There's a thing that they all have that is a through line through all of them. And I don't care if it's, Fish versus Humphreys McGee.
Right.
Sure, one leads more 70s funk, one leads a little bit more into hard rock, but they all have a thing that they're doing.
Yeah.
And the way I like the way you put that, that's not the way the world sounds to me.
Right. No, that's why I was always, it's obviously a genre much maligned at this point. Nu metal has a nasty, connotation to it, but I obviously still really adore the Deftones and stuff. But that was what first attracted me to even that genre, was this sort of shift that at a certain point became overly formulaic, but the idea of like a really heavy verse leading into a melodic and lovely, chorus or something like that really scratched an itch for me when I first was exposed to it. That sense of going like, no, yeah, I like that complexity and nuance, and the idea of even this single thing being a song or a film or whatever. I like the if art, to the extent that it is meant to reflect life and vice versa. Yeah, exactly. The jam band stuff, it's just like, I don't know, man. More power to you if you're walking through the world feeling that good.
I've never been dancing in fields.
Cool.
So I guess if we could get one last piece of advice real quick for you, like, what would you recommend to people that are kind of stuck or feel like they're stagnating, they're not living the life that they want to? Because like for me, the whole core of this show is to try and help people live better lives, and more importantly, live better lives when they're not like, I guess maybe even the type A personality, or the type, that's out to, I guess, people that want success but don't feel like they're that person. Maybe that's the best way of putting it.
Yeah. Wow.
Have you always been that type of person, or?
No, and it's a topic almost for a different show, right? To go into the whole introverted extrovert.
Well, because to me, you're always the most like outgoing person I know.
Yeah.
But I've known you a very small chunk of your life, so I don't know what you were like beforehand.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's an acquired skill. Yeah, for sure.
And that's why I've told Liz, I learned the stage thing.
I've heard it more and more. Yeah.
I hate being in front of people like that, but eventually you do something enough, you build the muscle memory, like it becomes just something you do.
Dude, I absolutely have a couple what I would consider to be key takeaways that made a huge difference for me in the approach to that. So even in terms of the shyness part, number one, right? I mentioned how important it was to grow my network, right? So the headline in part is don't do it alone, right? So how do you accomplish that? By meeting people. How do you do that if you're shy? By making it about them instead of about you. Number one, if I'm going to let's leave the COVID of it all to the side and say we're back in a world where in-person group events are taking place. Okay. You walk into those sort of places, and what you end up seeing typically is some people are huddled together in a little circle, where it's like, okay, am I the type of person that is so confident that I'm going to literally physically insert myself into a circle of strangers? You know what I mean? Okay, well, let's set that one aside. What I instead end up looking for are, inevitably, you will see a couple people that are sort of awkwardly holding an appetizer plate and looking around the room, not sure what to do, right? Go be the go rescue those people. Go rescue them and don't barrage them with, hi, here's who I am. And you know what I mean? Like, go be inquisitive, go find out about them. Trust in the fact that it's amazing to me how many times I've had conversations with people where all I did was ask them open-ended questions about them and let them talk.
Mm-hmm.
And they come away thinking I'm some brilliant conversationalist, and it's like, aha, yeah, people love talking about themselves. It's even my own awareness that I can accidentally dominate a conversation because I'm very passionate. I make, connections in my mind, and I'll go off on tangents. And I was nervous about doing that. It's like, I don't want to come up to a stranger And it's like, it would be the easiest thing in the world for me to be like, Outrise, let me tell you, like, because I feel that way. And I have so much to say about it. And so even to overcome that piece of it, like strategically, I was like, I've got to make a point of asking people questions so that I don't risk doing that. But then I found that it's like, oh, it's also this whole other thing being accomplished where, I don't know, man, you just endear yourself to people quickly. And so the other piece of don't do it alone, okay, is accountability partners have been absolutely essential. Whether it's a health decision like, getting up and going to the gym tomorrow or not, right? The difference in whether or not I literally go to the gym tomorrow is most likely whether or not I call one of the people that are going to go and tell them that I'm going to be there, right? If I tell you I'm going to be there, I really don't want to be the type of person that people think of as a liar or unreliable, or you know what I mean? It's like Brian Pritchard does what he says he's going to do. That is who I am. And so it is so impossible for me, like so unpleasant to have to navigate around it going like, boy, I told Liz and Nick that I promised them that I was going to do this thing, right? And now I've got to go to them and come up with excuses and backpedal about why and why not. So yeah, that sense of when I made up my mind 8 years ago to leave a steady job and go out on my own, the first thing I did was start, before turning in my official 2 weeks notice, I did have lunch and have conversations with a few key coworkers. And I did that strategically because not just to give them the information, but because I knew I was so passionate about why I thought what I was doing was right and why I believed in it. And I knew that it would be so hard to talk myself out of it and get scared and allow fear to get in the way. Hopefully that makes sense. I don't mean to ramble, but by telling them about it, it made me need to see it through rather than live in a world where all of those guys, if I worked at that same company for another few years, it's like they would always know that one time I was serious about, moving on with this big plan.
Yeah.
And then didn't have the courage to follow through with it. And I don't want people to think that of me, nor do I want it to be true of my life. And so I in recognizing, like, I don't know that anybody would really say it's a great trait to care so much about what other people think of you, right? Most people would say that's something you need to really root out and work on. I tried to use it find a way to turn it into a strength, right? And say, I do care so much about what any number of people think. And so depending on the goals that I'm working on, I'm going to strategically select people to involve in those goals and involve in those journey in a way that makes it really hard for me to basically be my own worst enemy, which I'm fully capable of otherwise.
Right on, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. I think there's a lot of good stuff in there for everybody. I know that we've had many conversations between us, and I always feel immensely empowered after our conversations to, go on and grab the bull by the balls or whatever it is. Is the balls or the horns, one of the two. They're both moderately phallic in nature. So everyone, go check out peacefreqs.com. Where can we send people to check you out, Ryan, or what you're working on?
Thank you. Outrise.com, the website, has information about the app and also has the links to the Google Play and App Store to download it. So it's a free app. You can go right to Google Play or the App Store and enter Outrise, Outrise, and download it. And you can contact me then at Brian, Brian, at outrise.com. So I can answer any questions or help you create your first experience, whatever. There's a hello at outrise.com that I am one of a few people that monitors too. So I'm easy enough to find out there and really want to and want to help people make the most of the tool and help them. So thank you for the opportunity to talk about it. I hope that if anything that I had to say sparks an idea or helps somebody, then just like the trail of breadcrumbs for movie tours, it's such a nice thing to feel like anything we're doing has an impact or a legacy, right? That we're building, right? That it's stuff that is nice
Very
to
cool.
think about.
All right, everyone. You have a good one. This podcast is a proud creation of the Mad Audio Lab. For more information, check out madaudiolab.com.